The flight attendant was still smiling when I started to scream. The phone in my hand showed a text from an unfamiliar nurse. Your daughter is in intensive care. She is not responding. I was between clouds and God, strapped to a narrow seat, and the sky felt like it was closing. My heart banged so hard I thought the cabin would hear it. I pressed the call button with a shaking thumb. Land this plane. Please. She is my only child. The words came out raw, like I was coughing up fire. My name is Harlan Quince. I am 68 years old. I gave 4 decades to the power company climbing poles in freezing rain and blistering heat, so other people's lights would stay on. I fixed roofs on Saturdays for neighbors who could not pay. I mowed lawns for widows. I kept my wife comfortable through the cancer that took her. Laurel, my girl, was the one thing I never had to fix. She was steady. She was light. Now a stranger told me she might be gone by morning, and I was trapped in the sky with nothing but prayer and a seatbelt. The plane did not land early, but my mind did. Every mile we crossed, I crawled through time. I saw Laurel at 5 with jam on her face, clutching a blue teddy bear named Admiral. I saw her at 12, twisting her hair when she was worried about a spelling bee. I saw her at 20, standing in my Ohio driveway in a new white coat, saying, Dad, I got into nursing school in Los Angeles. I saw the way I held my smile so it would not break. I had told her to go, to chase the sun. I promised I would visit often. Then my knees started hurting. The pension checks were small, and the miles felt larger than the map. When we landed, my legs forgot how to work. Los Angeles smelled like jet fuel and hot coins. I rented the cheapest car they would give an old man with a worn driver's license and a wallet of folded photos. The hospital downtown looked like a glass ship run aground, its windows cold and shining. A security guard with tired eyes took one look at my face and waved me through. The halls hummed with machines I did not know. The elevator climbed slow, like it was counting my regrets. I found the nurse from the text at the ICU desk. She said, Mr. Quince, your daughter is very sick. We have stabilized her for now. I asked why she was alone. The nurse glanced down, then up, as if the truth was taped to the floor. Her husband did not arrive. He has not answered our calls. I repeated the word husband like it was foreign food. Laurel had married a man named Braxton Vale 2 years back. I met him once at a small ceremony behind a taco truck. He wore a white jacket and a gold watch that flashed like a mirror. He said he worked in branding. I asked him what he actually did. He smiled in a way that did not touch his eyes and told me he made things bigger. I told Laurel that love should make a person smaller sometimes, humble. Laurel had squeezed my hand and whispered, He is kind when it matters, Dad. I wanted to believe her. I washed my hands at the sink, pulled on a paper gown that felt like tissue, and walked into a room full of machines. Laurel lay there under a pale blanket, a tube at her mouth, purple bruises on her arms like storm clouds. Her hair, black and glossy, fanned over the pillow. The monitors ticked and blinked, a foreign language that told me only this. She was here, but she was far. I touched her hand. It was warm. Laurel, I said, it is Dad. I am here now. You can rest. You can let me carry the worry. I wanted to pour my strength into her like water. I wanted to trade places. The nurse said the words overdosed and dehydration and hypoxia. I swallowed them like stones. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a photo that burned. Braxton stood on a yacht the size of a courthouse, sun on his grin, champagne raining from a bottle he held by the neck. A caption tagged his friends and said, Sundays for winners. Another video followed, music thumping. Girls in neon swimsuits dancing near silver rails. There were fireworks at sea, bright and wasteful. He had posted it all an hour ago. An hour ago, Laurel's heart rate had plunged. I watched the numbers on the screen rise and fall, as if they were trying to climb out of a pit. The nurse saw my face and asked if I was okay. I said yes, because men like me are taught to say yes while the room is burning. I sat by the bed and wrote down every beep and every word the doctors used. I learned the names of the drugs. I learned to breathe with the machines. I learned the price of a lie. A social worker came with forms that smelled like rubber bands. She asked about next of kin. I said me. She asked about medical power of attorney. I handed her an envelope I had brought since Laurel moved west, the one she signed at my kitchen table after her wedding, because I insisted. I told her you always have a key in your pocket, just in case. She had laughed at me then. She was not laughing now. The social worker nodded and left. I kissed Laurel's forehead and promised her that I would be the key. I do not like the internet, but that night I learned to use it like a hammer. I looked up Braxton's company. I looked up their bank partners. I looked up every photo he had ever posted and who had liked it. I wrote down the names of men in sunglasses and women with glass smiles. I called an old friend from a union who retired to Phoenix and now read contracts for fun. He picked up on the second ring and said, "Harlan, you sound like a storm." I told him the shape of it. He said, "I will email you language that cuts clean." It arrived 5 minutes later. I printed it at the hospital desk on paper that was warm from a machine. It said, in short words, that when a man marries into a family, he also marries into its duty. I signed where I could. I circled what I would need. I placed the papers in a cheap blue folder and sat on my lap like a sleeping animal. Through the wall, I heard a cold call for another room. Boots pounded the hall. The world thinned to the stripe of light under the ICU door and the soft clockwork of Laurel's breath. I thought of my wife, Nellie, who died on a Wednesday with him on her lips. I thought of the nights I sat up with her, and the way suffering can clean a life down to what matters. I thought of Braxton laughing in the sun while my girl fought in the dark. I did not feel rage. I felt a calm that scared me more than rage. When the monitor gave a soft alarm and a nurse hurried in, I stood to the side and did not shake. I knew two things with perfect clarity. First, I would not leave Laurel. Not for an hour. Not for a minute. She would wake to my voice or she would sleep to it. Second, I would find Braxton before the sun went down again. I would not scream. I would not swing. I would not be petty. But I would take from him what he prized most, and I would do it in daylight. The nurse silenced the alarm and checked a line. She glanced at me, saw something in my face, and looked away. My phone buzzed once more. A new post. A new party. A location tag on the marina. I picked up the blue folder, kissed my daughter's knuckles, and stepped into the hall. I had planned to call the police, to call a lawyer, to call God again. Instead, I called a number only 3 people in this world still remembered. The voice that answered was dry as cedar. Harlan. It said, "I wondered when you would need me." I told him where to meet me and what to bring. He said, "It will be done," and the line went dead like a door closing. I walked past the nurse's station, past the vending machines, past the family eating crackers on the floor. I walked toward the elevator with the blue folder tucked under my arm and a plan taking shape in my chest, quiet and simple as a nail. When the elevator doors slid open, I stepped inside and pressed the button for the lobby. The doors began to close. A hand shot through the gap and stopped them cold. A man in a white jacket and a gold watch stepped in, breathless, smiling like he had rehearsed it. He smelled like salt and champagne. His sunglasses were still on, though it was midnight. He said, "Harlan, there you are. I was just about to call you." I looked at his hand on the blue folder, and then into the mirror doors where our faces stood side by side. The elevator hummed, the floor numbers lit, and the cables sang. I said, "Braxton, we're going to talk." He smiled wider, not seeing the storm. The elevator dropped toward the lobby, and I decided where he would land. The elevator lights flickered, as if the building could sense the weight inside it. Braxton leaned against the rail like he owned it, tapping his gold watch against the steel. I could still smell the salt air on him, a mix of sea spray, alcohol, and something sour beneath. Guilt, maybe. His grin was the kind people wear when they think the world still works for them. "Relax, old man," he said, smoothing his hair. "Laurel's fine. Just a scare, right? You know how she gets. Too emotional." The words felt like nails in my ears. Too emotional? My daughter lay upstairs fighting for her life, and this boy, this spoiled, polished ghost, was calling a scare. I turned to face him, calm on the outside, though my chest felt like it had split in half. She's in a coma, Braxton. The doctors don't know if she'll wake up. He shrugged, glancing at his reflection. She'll be fine. She always bounces back. I wanted to ask him where he'd been when she stopped breathing. I wanted to ask him what kind of man celebrated while his wife drowned in machines. But I didn't. Men like Braxton feed on outrage. They mistake anger for weakness. So I stayed still, silent. The elevator dinged. The doors opened to the lobby's harsh white light. He walked out first, still talking about a business opportunity he couldn't miss. He said it like it justified everything. I was networking, he added. A brand expansion meeting on the yacht. You wouldn't understand. I followed him outside, the folder pressed tight under my arm. The night smelled like wet asphalt and jasmine from the hospital garden. He turned, smiling that same hollow smile. You flew all the way here just to guilt-trip me? I flew here, I said quietly, to save my daughter. You were supposed to be doing the same. He scoffed, stepping closer. Save her from what? Herself? She's been popping pills for months. You think I can control that? My throat tightened. Laurel, my bright girl, the nurse who stayed late on holidays, who called patients sweetheart, even when they cursed at her. Popping pills? It didn't make sense. But Braxton's eyes were too steady, too confident. He believed his own story. I've seen her medicine cabinet, I said. Prescriptions you filled in your name. Sedatives. Strong ones. He smirked as if proud. She couldn't sleep. I helped her relax. You should thank me. Something inside me went cold. Not anger, clarity. The same feeling I had when climbing a power line during a storm, knowing one wrong move would end me. Every sense sharpened. Every second stretched. You'll come upstairs, I said evenly. You'll sit with her. She needs to hear your voice. He chuckled. What? You think she'll wake up because I hold her hand? That's not how it works, Harlan. She's gone. You should face it. He turned to walk away, keys jingling. But I stepped in front of him. My hand didn't shake. Braxton, I said, if you walk away right now, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. He stopped, staring at me like I was a relic from a different age. You don't scare me, he said. You're just an old man with a dead wife and a dying daughter. You've got nothing left to take from me. I smiled then, not with joy, but with something older, knowledge. That's where you're wrong. He tilted his head. What's that supposed to mean? Go, I said quietly. Go enjoy your boat. He laughed and turned toward the parking lot. I watched the taillights vanish into the dark, the engine roaring like a victory lap. I stood there until the sound faded, then opened the blue folder. Inside were copies of everything I'd gathered, marriage license, bank statements, investment accounts. Laurel's signature on the joint holdings. And at the back, the power of attorney forms I'd kept all these years, the ones she had signed in my kitchen. My phone buzzed again. It was my friend from Phoenix, Earl, the retired contract man. You still want me to pull the trigger on that account transfer? Yes, I texted back. Everything in her name. Lock him out by sunrise. Earl replied with one word. Done. I walked back inside, feeling the hum of justice. Not fast, not cruel, just inevitable. Upstairs, Laurel's room was quiet except for the rhythm of machines. I sat beside her, took her hand again and whispered, Rest, sweetheart. He can't hurt you anymore. The night nurse poked her head in. Everything okay, Mr. Quince? Yes, I said softly. Everything's just beginning. Outside the window, the city glowed like a circuit board. Wires of light, pulses of life. Somewhere across that electric sprawl, Braxton was raising another glass, thinking he had won. But he didn't know that by morning every account, every dollar, every piece of luxury with his name on it would vanish into the same dark he had left my daughter in. And that was only the start. At 3 a.m., my phone rang again, this time not from the hospital. The voice on the line whispered, Mr. Quince, you need to see what's on the security footage. It wasn't an overdose. The call came from a man whose voice I did not know, yet carried the weight of truth. You need to see it, he whispered again. The ICU cameras. Your daughter didn't do this to herself. I sat up in the hospital chair, my heart hammering so loud I was afraid it would set off the monitors. The hall outside was empty. A clock ticked somewhere, loud as a hammer. Who is this? I asked. Name's Darnell, he said quietly. I work security here. Been on the night shift 12 years. I saw the file before they locked it. He paused, lowering his voice even more. Your son-in-law came in the night before she crashed. Brought her coffee. Stayed 5 minutes. She was fine when he left. 20 minutes later, she flatlined. You want to see the tape before it disappears. The line went dead. I looked at Laurel, her chest rising slow under the white blanket. My hands trembled. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to storm down to the security office and demand the footage. But I forced myself to breathe. I had learned long ago that rage is a blunt tool. If I wanted the truth, I needed to move like a craftsman. Quiet, precise. I slipped out of the room and walked the hall toward the elevators. The nurses were switching shifts, their laughter echoing off the tiles. I blended in like another shadow, the blue folder tucked under my arm. The security office was in the basement, behind a door marked staff only. I knocked once. A heavy-set man with tired eyes opened a crack. You Harlan? He asked. I nodded. He looked me up and down, then gestured me in. The room smelled of coffee and disinfectant. Monitors filled the walls, showing looping feeds of hallways, lobbies, and parking lots. Darnell sat at a desk surrounded by blinking lights. He handed me a USB drive. I made a copy before the supervisor flagged it. Won't stay on the system much longer. I swallowed. Why are you helping me? He leaned back, eyes softening. Got a daughter, too. Can't stand watching good men lose everything to snakes in nice shoes. We plugged the drive into a small monitor. The screen flickered to life. There was my daughter's hospital room, 2 nights earlier. She was sitting up, tired but alert, reading something on her phone. The timestamp said 9:02 p.m. Then the door opened. Braxton walked in wearing that same white jacket and gold watch. My stomach turned. He leaned down, kissed her forehead, and handed her a cup. She smiled, weak but real. They talked for a minute. Then she frowned, her hand trembling slightly. He said something low and sharp. She tried to get up. He pressed her shoulder back down. She looked scared. And then he opened a small white packet, tore it, and poured the powder into her cup. He stirred it with his finger. I froze. Laurel took a sip. He smiled, said something else, and left. Within minutes, she slumped sideways, her phone falling to the floor. The machine alarms began to sound. Nurses rushed in. The video ended. Darnell exhaled. You see why I called. My vision blurred. I could hear my pulse in my ears. What was in that packet? He shook his head. Toxicology hasn't come back yet. But if he mixed a sedative with her meds, he didn't finish. He didn't have to. I clenched the edge of the desk until my knuckles turned white. The calm returned, the kind that sits deep beneath the anger. I turned to Darnell. This copy, does anyone else know it exists? He hesitated. No, but it won't stay quiet for long. You want it to matter, you gotta move fast. I will. I slipped the drive into my pocket and thanked him. His eyes followed me as I left, worried, like he'd just handed me a live fuse. Back upstairs, the hallway felt colder. I passed a group of nurses whispering about a doctor's resignation. I didn't stop. In Laurel's room, the machine still hummed, unaware that the world had just changed. I sat down beside her, pressing her hand against my chest. You didn't do this, baby. I whispered. I know now. I promise I'll make it right. My phone buzzed again. A message from Earl. Transfer complete. His accounts are frozen. He's calling banks in panic. You sure you want to keep this up? Yes, I texted back. But money's not enough anymore. I uploaded the video to an encrypted drive, sent copies to 2 people I trusted, Earl and an old friend from the local news station back in Ohio. Then I deleted it from the hospital computer. By morning, the city would know. But that wasn't the end. Not for me. Because the moment I left the ICU, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Down the hall, by the vending machines, stood Braxton, hair messy, shirt untucked, eyes wide. He wasn't holding champagne now. He was holding his phone, staring at me, and when our eyes met, he mouthed 2 words I'll never forget. "You're next." Before I could move, the hospital lights flickered and the alarms blared. Laurel's heart monitor flatlined. The sound of the flatline tore through the hall like a scream. Nurses ran past me, their shoes slapping the tile. I pushed through after them, shouting Laurel's name, but the word broke apart in my throat. When I reached her door, I froze. The room was a blur of motion. Hands pressing, machines flashing red, a doctor barking orders. Clear. The defibrillator paddle sparked. Laurel's body jerked. Nothing. Again. Another surge. Her chest lifted, then fell still. I stood at the doorway, unable to move. My knees shook. My lungs forgot their job. The same helpless feeling I'd had when Nellie slipped away returned like a ghost that had been waiting for its cue. The difference this time was rage. After the third shock, the doctor glanced at the clock and shook his head. Time of death, 4:58 a.m. The nurse pulled the sheet over Laurel's face. Something inside me died with her, but something else woke up. I stepped forward, my voice raw. "No. Try again." The doctor lowered his eyes. "Mr. Quince, I'm sorry. She's gone." I gripped the edge of the bed. "She was fine an hour ago. You said she was stable." "She was," he said softly. "Whatever was in her system must have triggered cardiac arrest." Whatever was in her system. The words repeated in my head like thunder. I turned. Braxton stood at the end of the hall, watching. He wasn't crying. He wasn't even pretending to. Just standing there, his gold watch catching the fluorescent light, expression unreadable. I walked toward him. Each step felt like walking across glass. "What did you do?" My voice was calm, too calm. He tilted his head, almost smiling. "Don't start this again, Harlan. You're grieving. People say things they regret." I reached for him, grabbed his collar, pulled him close. "You killed her." He smirked. "You have proof." My hand clenched. For a moment, I wanted to crush the smugness out of his face. But I didn't. I let go, because he was right about one thing. I needed proof the world could not ignore. "I do," I said. "And by the time the sun sets, everyone else will too." He laughed softly, brushing his shirt where I grabbed it. "You think a shaky old man can take me down? You have no idea who you're messing with. I've got lawyers, friends, people who owe me." I leaned close enough for him to smell the truth on me. "You have nothing. Not your money. Not your house. Not her. And soon not your freedom." The smile vanished. He turned away, muttering, "You'll regret this." "Maybe," I said, "but you'll remember it." He stormed out, his footsteps echoing down the corridor. I stood alone in the pale hospital light, the machines still humming their empty rhythm. The nurse touched my shoulder. "Mr. Quince will give you some time." Time. That's all anyone ever offers when they've run out of answers. I sat beside Laurel's bed, pulled back the sheet, and looked at her face one last time. She looked peaceful, like a girl napping after school. I brushed her hair from her forehead and whispered, "You didn't deserve this. I'll make sure he pays for every breath he stole." Outside the window, dawn was breaking over Los Angeles. The city looked calm, unaware that justice had just begun breathing through me. By 8 that morning, I was sitting in a diner near the marina, the same marina where Braxton's yacht was docked, the same one from the videos. The waitress poured me coffee, and I barely noticed when my hands trembled around the cup. Earl called. His voice was sharp. "It's done. Every joint account frozen. His cards are bouncing. He's already called 6 times screaming at the bank manager. But you should know, he's got a meeting with his investors today. He's desperate." "Good," I said. "Let him squirm." "You're playing with fire, Harlan," Earl warned. "Men like him, they don't lose quiet." "That's the plan," I said. When I hung up, I pulled out the USB drive Darnell had given me. I'd already sent the footage to an investigative reporter I trusted, Amelia Dorsey from Channel 8 in Ohio. She'd covered union corruption 20 years ago, back when she and I were both still standing straight. She owed me one. An hour later, she called. "Harlan," she said, her voice careful. "I saw the footage. It's bad. If what's in that packet matches a toxicology report, you've got attempted murder. Maybe even worse." "He finished the job this morning," I said flatly. Silence on the line. Then, "I'll make sure it airs tonight. National feed. You sure you want that kind of storm?" She was my storm. I said, "Now I'm hers." By noon, the story hit the internet. Husband of ICU patient caught on camera administering unknown substance. His photo was everywhere. The smile, the watch, the tan. The comments section lit up with anger. Some said it was fake. Others said it looked exactly like him. His company's website went down within an hour. Reporters camped outside his house. The yacht disappeared from the marina. I should have felt satisfied, but all I felt was empty. I drove to the church where Nellie had been buried. The wind smelled of pine and dust. I sat beside her stone and placed a daisy between the letters of her name. "She's with you now." I whispered, "But I'm not done yet." When I turned to leave, a black SUV pulled up beside the curb. Two men stepped out, suits, sunglasses, the kind of posture that screamed trouble. One of them spoke. "Mr. Quince, we'd like a word." "FBI." I asked. He flashed a badge. "Detective Lopez, LAPD. We got questions about a video that originated from your email, so it had spread faster than I thought." I nodded, then asked. They looked at each other. "Did you record it?" "No. A hospital security guard did." "It's real. Where's that drive now?" "With my attorney." I lied. They studied me for a moment. Then the taller one said, "You should lay low. The suspect's gone off-grid. His car was found abandoned near Long Beach." My stomach turned. "You think he's running?" "Maybe. Or maybe he's coming back. We'll be in touch." As they drove off, I felt the first edge of fear. Not for myself. Men my age don't fear much. But for what Braxton might do next. That night, I returned to hospital to collect Laurel's things. The room felt hollow without her. I folded her blanket, took her phone, and slipped her wedding ring off the nightstand. When I turned to leave, I noticed something strange. The blinds were open, and taped to the window was a note. It was written in red marker, all capital letters. "Stop digging, or you'll join her." I felt a chill crawl up my neck. He'd been here. I called the nurse's desk. "Who was in my daughter's room today?" They checked the log. "Only housekeeping, sir." But I knew better. Braxton was close, watching. Desperate men don't hide forever. They lash out. I left the hospital and drove aimlessly through Los Angeles, the city glowing like a furnace. Every billboard, every streetlight felt like it was mocking me. The world kept moving, unaware that one man's life had been split apart. Around midnight, I parked outside the marina again. His yacht, the Seraphine, sat silent in the water, lights off. But there was movement, someone inside, pacing. I waited, watched. An hour passed before the cabin door opened and Braxton stepped out. He looked nothing like the man from the videos. His hair was wild, his eyes sunken. He stumbled to the edge, clutching a bottle, muttering to himself. I stepped out of my car and walked down the dock. My shoes thudded softly on the wood. He didn't see me until I was 10 feet away. "You ruined me," he shouted, voice cracking. "You old bastard, you ruined everything." I didn't stop. "You did that yourself." He laughed, a wild, broken sound. "You think this makes you a hero? You think she'd want this? She was weak. Harlan always was." "Careful what you say next." I warned. He staggered closer, bottle in hand. "You think you know her?" "You don't." "You think she loved you?" "She pitied you. Both of you were leeches. Her with her pills, you with your guilt." I took another step, the dock creaking under us. "You're drunk. Put the bottle down." He raised it like a weapon. "You can't take any more from me." I looked at him, broken under the moonlight, and realized something terrible. He wasn't just guilty, he was unraveling. The man was already gone. You already lost everything, Braxton, I said softly. Now you're just trying to find someone else to blame. He screamed and swung the bottle. It shattered on the rail, sending shards into the air. He lunged. I stepped aside, years of climbing poles teaching me balance even now. He stumbled, slipped on the slickwood, and fell hard against the edge. The sound that followed was a splash and silence. I rushed forward, peering over. The water churned, dark and deep. For a second, I saw his gold watch glint under the surface. Then nothing. The waves closed. I stood there, heart pounding, the wind whipping through my hair. My mind told me to jump in to save him, but my body stayed still. Some part of me knew this was how it had to end. Not by my hand, but by his own weight pulling him under. When the sirens came 10 minutes later, I told them everything. How he slipped, how I tried to help. They found no bruises, no struggle. Just one man's final fall into the truth he'd built. Back at the hospital, I sat beside Laurel one last time before they took her to the morgue. I held her ring in my hand. "It's over now," I whispered. "He can't hurt you anymore." The nurse touched my shoulder gently. "You should rest, Mr. Quince." "I will," I said, "but not yet." Because somewhere deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. Men like Braxton leave trails and ghosts. And before the week was out, I would discover that one of them was still breathing. 2 days later, I received a package at my motel. No return address. Inside was a phone and a video of Braxton, recorded hours before his death. He was smiling. "I'm not finished with you, Harlan." The motel smelled like mildew and lost dreams. The kind of place where the carpet remembers every footstep. I sat on the edge of the bed, the package open beside me, my hand shaking as I stared at the phone inside. It was sleek and black, newer than anything I owned. The screen was cracked, but it was still on, stuck on a pause video of Braxton Vale. My stomach knotted. He was supposed to be dead. The police had dragged his body from the marina 3 days ago, swollen and unrecognizable except for that damn gold watch. I'd stood there on the dock as they zipped the black bag shut. The coroner had confirmed it. His fingerprints, his ID. The death was ruled accidental. Case closed. And yet, here he was, frozen mid-smile, staring at me from a stranger's phone. I pressed play. The video began with Braxton sitting on his yacht, the same night before he fell. He looked jittery, eyes bloodshot, laughing to himself. The camera shook slightly, like he was holding it with one hand. "Hey, old man," he said, his voice raw and uneven. "You think you've won, huh? You think you can bury me with your self-righteous crap? Let me tell you something about men like me. We always leave a trail. And when people start digging into it, they find things. You have no idea what your little angel was mixed up in." I froze. He leaned closer, eyes gleaming with something wild. "You think she was innocent? You think your sweet Laurel didn't know where the money came from? She did. She helped me. Every transfer, every deal. Ask her nursing friends how she afforded that car, that condo. You're not the only one who can play hero, Harlan. She had secrets too." He laughed, a broken, hollow sound. "By the time you see this, maybe I'll be gone. Or maybe I'll be free. Either way, you'll never sleep again." The screen went black. I sat there for a long time, the silence louder than the traffic outside. Every word burned like acid in my chest. Lies, I told myself. Just the ramblings of a dying man, try to poison whatever was left of me. But still, doubt crept in. Could it be true? Could Laurel have known what he was doing? No, she wasn't like that. She'd taken extra shifts just to buy me a plane ticket for Thanksgiving. She'd volunteered at the children's ward on Christmas. But the condo, the car, how had she afforded those on a nurse's salary? I picked up her phone from my bag, the one I'd taken from the hospital. I hadn't been able to look at it before. Now I unlocked it using her birthday. The screen lit up with photos of sunsets, friends, and her smiling beside Braxton at parties. Normal. Perfect. Until I opened her messages. There were texts to Braxton about money transfers, odd accounts, words like fund and clearance. A few messages deleted, others unreadable. My head spun. Had she helped him? Had she trusted him with something that destroyed her? I needed answers. The next morning, I drove to the police precinct downtown. Detective Lopez looked exhausted, his tie loose, coffee stains on his shirt. He waved me into his office. "Mr. Quince," he said, rubbing his eyes, "we closed the file on Braxton's death. What brings you back?" I placed the phone on his desk. "He's not done. Look." He frowned, pressed play, and watched the video in silence. When it ended, he leaned back in his chair, expression unreadable. "When did this show up?" "This morning. No return address." "Someone's trying to rattle you," he said finally. "This could have been pre-recorded. Maybe a friend sent it." "Then find out who," I said. He nodded slowly. "I'll see what I can do. But, Mr. Quince, sometimes the dead still make noise. Doesn't mean they're alive." That phrase haunted me the rest of the day. By sunset, I was sitting in my car outside Laurel's condo. I hadn't been here since her wedding reception. The lights inside were off, but her keys still fit. Dust floated in the amber light as I stepped in. Everything was neat, untouched, but it didn't feel like her. The place smelled of perfume and bleach, like someone had tried to erase a memory. I searched through drawers and cabinets until I found a small metal box under her bed. Inside were documents, pay slips, bank statements, receipts. And buried at the bottom, a USB drive identical to the one Darnell had given me. I plugged it into her laptop. Dozens of files appeared, contracts, invoices, and a spreadsheet labeled Vail Holdings, offshore accounts. I clicked it open. The numbers hit me like a fist. Millions of dollars, transferred in small increments. Dates matched Braxton's business trips. And Laurel's name appeared on several transactions, not as a sender, but as a witness. She'd been helping him sign off on fake hospital charity donations, money laundering under the name of a foundation she volunteered for. My chest ached. I wanted to scream, but the air in the room was too heavy. So that was the truth. Laurel hadn't been evil. She'd been tricked, used. He'd made her believe they were funding medical research, helping children. And when she found out the truth, he silenced her. The puzzle finally fit together. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You're getting close. Oh, man. Stop before you end up like her." I froze. My heart raced. Someone was watching me. I looked toward the window. Across the street, a black SUV idled, headlights off. I grabbed the documents and slipped out the back door. I drove until the city lights disappeared behind me, the freeway stretching out like a lifeline. I stopped at a rest area near the mountains. My nerves shot. I called Earl. "You were right," I said. "He wasn't working alone. There's more money, offshore accounts, forged charities, and someone's still protecting him." Earl cursed under his breath. "Then whoever sent that package knows you got the evidence. You need to hide it." "I'm not hiding," I said. "I'm finishing it." "Harlan." I hung up. The night wind howled through the cracked window. I thought of Laurel again, her laugh, the way she used to hum when she cooked. I thought of the way she defended Braxton. The first time I said I didn't trust him. "He's trying, Dad. Give him a chance." And I had. Now she was gone. I opened the metal box again and stared at the papers. Somewhere in these pages was the name of the person who helped Braxton move the money. I scanned every document until I saw it. A digital signature. Attorney of record. Tessa Wynn. The name hit me like a jolt. I remembered it. She'd been at the wedding. Tall woman, sharp eyes, a friend of Braxton's. She'd handled their prenup. If anyone knew the full picture, it was her. The next morning, I drove to her office downtown. A glass building that looked like a mirror to the sky. The receptionist smiled politely until I mentioned Tessa's name. Then her face changed. "She's unavailable," she said. I leaned closer. "Tell her it's about Braxton Vail and Laurel Quince." The receptionist hesitated, then picked up the phone. A few moments later, she gestured me toward a private elevator. Top floor. When I stepped into Tessa Wynn's office, the air smelled of expensive perfume and fear. She stood by the window, arms crossed, wearing a dark suit. "Harlan Quince," she said, her voice cool. "I was expecting you sooner." "You sent the phone," I said. She smiled faintly. "Smart man." "Why?" "Because Braxton wasn't the brains. He was a distraction. He thought he was untouchable, but he was sloppy. When he started bragging about clean money, I knew it would come crashing down. I tried to warn your daughter, but she wouldn't listen." I clenched my fists. "You could have stopped him." "I did," she said quietly. "Eventually. That video? I sent to make sure you stopped digging before the wrong people noticed you." "Who are the wrong people?" She stepped closer, eyes cold. "The ones who still have the rest of the money. And they're not as patient as Braxton." The room went silent. Then she handed me an envelope. "Inside is the rest of the account information. Take it and disappear. Harlan, you've already won more than most." I took the envelope, feeling the weight of it. "You think I'll just walk away?" She gave a sad smile. "If you don't, you won't live long enough to bury her properly." Outside, the sky had darkened again. I drove back toward my motel, the envelope on the seat beside me. My mind spun with questions about Laurel, about the people behind us, about how far it all reached. When I pulled into the parking lot, something fell off. The lights were out. The manager's office was dark. Then I saw it, my door slightly open. I reached into my jacket, gripping the wrench I kept under the seat. Inside, the room was torn apart, paper scattered, drawers overturned. The envelope was gone, and on the mirror, written in red marker, were the same words as before. "Stop digging or you'll join her." Only this time, there was something else beneath it. A smear of blood, fresh and dark. My reflection stared back at me, older, colder, and certain of one thing. This wasn't over. As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was a live video feed, showing a woman tied to a chair in a dark room. And behind her voice came a whisper I hadn't heard in years. "Hello, Harlan. Remember me?" The sound of that voice froze me where I stood. It was low, measured, and soaked in memory. I hadn't heard it in almost 20 years, but my bones remembered before my mind did. "Hello, Harlan." The woman on the screen whimpered through the gag. A dim light flickered behind her, swinging like a bare bulb in a basement. Her eyes, wide, terrified, locked onto the camera, as if pleading with me directly. Then the voice spoke again. "You took something that wasn't yours. The girl took something too. Now it's time to settle the debt." I swallowed hard. "Who is this? What do you want?" Static filled the screen for a moment. Then the man stepped into view. His face was older, roughened by time, but the scar across his left cheek hadn't faded. It was Vincent Kells. 15 years ago, we'd worked together at the power company. He'd been fired for stealing copper, wiring, and threatening a foreman. The same week, the foreman's house had mysteriously burned down. I hadn't seen him since. Now he was here, standing in the shadows, holding someone hostage. "Vincent," I said, voice trembling with disbelief. "You're still alive?" He smirked. "You say that like you tried to make sure I wasn't." I felt my stomach drop. "You did this to Laurel?" He laughed, a hollow, rasping sound that made my skin crawl. "No, Harlan, your little princess did this to herself. She got curious about the wrong accounts. She started asking about the foundation that never existed, and when she found out it was my pipeline, she tried to take it down. Braxton was supposed to fix that problem quietly. He didn't. He panicked. So I did it for him." My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles turned white. "You killed her." Vincent shrugged. "Collateral damage." The words sliced through me like a blade. "Who's the woman?" He leaned closer to the camera, grinning. "Someone who means something to you. Or at least she used to." He yanked the gag away from the woman's mouth, and my heart stopped. It was Amelia Dorsey, the reporter who had helped me leak the footage of Braxton. The only person outside my circle who knew everything. "Help me, Harlan," she cried. "They found me." The video cut to black. Then a text appeared on the screen. "Come alone. Midnight. Pier 9. Bring the files, or she dies. My hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I looked around the motel room, the overturned drawers, the blood on the mirror, and knew they'd already been here. They were watching, listening. I took a slow breath, steady myself the way I used to when climbing power lines in a storm. Fear wouldn't help me now. I had one chance to end this. I opened the drawer by the bed and pulled out the last thing I brought from home, my old leather tool bag. Inside were pliers, wire cutters, and a small revolver that hadn't been fired since the day Nellie died. I checked the cylinder. 5 bullets. Enough. The drive to the pier took less than an hour, but it felt like a lifetime. The city lights flickered in the rain, streets shining like wet glass. Every time I passed a dark alley, I expected to see headlights behind me. By the time I reached the docks, the clock on my dashboard read 11:47. The sea was restless, waves slapping against the wooden posts like warning drums. Pier 9 was deserted, except for a single boat, its cabin light glowing faintly. I stepped out of the car, the revolver hidden in my jacket, and walked toward it. My shoes echoed against the planks. "Vincent," I shouted. "I'm here." A figure stepped out from the cabin. He was taller than I remembered, broader, but the scar made him unmistakable. He had a pistol in his right hand and a smirk that hadn't aged a day. "Good to see you, old friend," he said. "You always did show up when someone needed fixing. Where is she?" I demanded. He gestured toward the cabin. "She's inside, unharmed, for now." I reached into my jacket and pulled out a flash drive. "These are the files. Every offshore account, every transfer. You let her go and I walk away." He chuckled. "You've gotten smart in your old age, Harlan, but not smart enough. You think I'm literally the only man who's seen my face walk away." The wind whipped his coat as he lifted the gun. That's when another voice cut through the night. "Drop it, Kells." Floodlights exploded across the dock. A dozen figures stepped out of the shadows. LAPD. Detective Lopez at the front, gun drawn. Vincent spun toward the light, cursing. I dove sideways, the gunshot cracking through the air. The bullet tore through my sleeve, grazing my arm. Pain flared, sharp and hot, but I stayed on my feet. Another shot. Another flash. Lopez shouted something, and chaos erupted. I crawled toward the cabin, blood dripping down my hand. Inside, Amelia was tied to a chair, tape across her mouth. I cut her free, and she clung to me, shaking. "He said they'd kill you," she whispered. "Not tonight," I said. Outside, another gunshot echoed, then silence. When I stepped out, Vincent was lying face down on the pier, the tide licking at his boots. Lopez stood over him, gun still raised, eyes wide with adrenaline. "It's over," he said. But as the paramedics loaded Vincent's body into a stretcher, something in me knew it wasn't over. Because when I looked back toward the cabin, the flash drive I dropped was gone. The next morning, I woke up in a hospital bed with my arm bandaged. Amelia was sitting beside me, a cup of coffee in her hands. "You're lucky Lopez had you tailed," she said softly. "He knew you'd go alone." I nodded. Vincent, dead. Single shot to the chest. I should have felt relief, but instead I felt a hollow ache. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Laurel, her laugh, her light, and the darkness that had swallowed it. Amelia reached into her purse and handed me a folded paper. Before he died, Lopez searched Vincent's boat, found this under a false panel. I opened it. It was a bank ledger, dozens of account numbers. But at the top, in Vincent's handwriting, were 3 words. Final partner W. I frowned. W? Amelia met my eyes. Tessa Wynn. The name hit me like a brick. "She's the one still moving the money," she said. "Vincent was just the muscle. She's the brains now." I gripped the paper. "Then she's next." Amelia placed a hand on mine. "You can't keep doing this, Harlan. You've already lost too much." I looked at her, my voice steady. "That's why I have nothing left to lose." That night, I sat in my car overlooking downtown Los Angeles. The city glittered like 1,000 secrets pretending to be stars. In the passenger seat sat the gun, reloaded. In my pocket, the ledger, and in my heart, a single truth. Laurel had died because of greed, because people like Braxton, Vincent, and Tessa thought decency was something you could buy. They were wrong. I started the engine and pulled into the night. Whatever waited for me next, I was ready, because this wasn't revenge anymore. It was redemption. As I turned onto Wilshire Boulevard, a black sedan pulled up behind me. My phone buzzed with a new message. No name, just a single line. "You're running out of time, Harlan. She's waiting for you." The message sat on my screen like a warning carved in stone. "You're running out of time, Harlan. She's waiting for you." The number was untraceable. No name, no location. But I knew who she was. Tessa Wynn. The last thread in a noose that had already claimed too many lives. The rain came down in hard silver sheets as I drove through Los Angeles, the wipers struggling to keep up. Every red light felt too long. Every car behind me felt like a tail. I turned twice down side streets just to be sure I wasn't being followed. Tessa's law firm sat in a tower of glass and arrogance downtown, all mirror panels and polished marble, a place built to intimidate. She had built her reputation, defending the guilty and making them look noble. Now she was the only one left standing from Braxton's empire. The storm had cleared most of the streets. I parked 2 blocks away and walked the rest of the distance under the flicker of streetlights. The lobby guard glanced up as I entered, then waved me through without question. I didn't know if it was luck or something darker. The elevator carried me up 32 floors, the hum of machinery filling the silence. My reflection in the mirror doors looked older than I remembered, haunted, hollow, but not finished. When the doors opened, I stepped into an office lit by one lamp and the glow of the city beyond the glass. Tessa Wynn stood by her desk, back to me, staring at the skyline. Her voice floated through the quiet. "I thought you'd come eventually." I closed the door behind me. "You knew I would." She turned slowly, her face calm, too calm. "You always were stubborn, Harlan. Laurel got that from you." The sound of my daughter's name on her tongue made my jaw tighten. "Don't you dare say her name." She smiled faintly. "You think I killed her. You think I sent Vincent after her. But the truth is, she was the only one who tried to do the right thing. I admired her for that." "Admired her?" I took a step forward. "You laundered millions through a fake foundation. You signed every one of those accounts." She nodded. "Yes, and now those accounts are empty. You've seen what happens when you push too hard. Braxton, Vincent, they were tools. You broke them, but the people above them, the real ones, they don't break. They erase." I frowned. "Who are you talking about?" She gestured toward the window. "The men who build cities and buy senators. The ones who turn disasters into profits. You think this was about money, Harlan? It was about control. Braxton was just a salesman with nice teeth." I stayed silent. She reached into her desk and pulled out a manila folder. "Everything you need is in here, names, accounts, transfers. But if you take this, they'll come for you next. And they don't miss." I hesitated, watching her closely. She was shaking slightly, the first crack in her composure. "You're scared," I said. She exhaled. "You should be too." "I'm too old to be scared." She smiled sadly. "Then you're already dead." She slid the folder across the desk toward me. "Take it, but promise me something. Don't give it to the police. They're part of it. All of it." I stared at the folder. It was thick, heavy, and felt like a choice. Before I could answer, a noise shattered the quiet. A low hum that turned into a hiss. The lights flickered, then went out. Tessa's eyes widened. "They're here." A gunshot cracked the glass wall, spraying shards across the room. We dove to the floor as a bullet lodged into the far wall. I crawled toward the folder, grabbed it, and shoved it under my coat. "Who is it?" I shouted. "The ones who clean up," she hissed. "They don't leave witnesses." We scrambled behind her desk as another round hit the ceiling. Smoke filled the air, tear gas. My lungs burned. I could barely see. "Back exit," she coughed, pointing toward a side door. We stumbled through it and into a maintenance stairwell. Alarms wailed. My ears rang with the echo of footsteps behind us. Heavy, methodical. Tessa grabbed my arm. Keep moving. We reached the 28th floor when she stopped suddenly. Give me the folder. I stared at her. What? They'll shoot me before they shoot you, she said, gasping. If I hand it over, maybe they'll let you walk away. I don't trust you. She smiled weakly. You shouldn't. Another shot rang out above us. Concrete dust falling from the ceiling. I grabbed her hand and pulled her down the next flight. We burst through a service door onto a half-finished floor. Scaffolding. Open windows. The city wind howling through steel beams. She stumbled to the edge, coughing. This is where it ends. I turned toward her, panting. You can still stop this, Tessa. Help me finish what Laurel started. Her eyes softened for a moment. Then she whispered, she was right, you know. She said you'd never give up. A flash of light cut through the darkness. A gunshot. Tessa jerked backward. A crimson bloom spreading across her chest. I spun around. A man in a black coat stood near the stairwell. Rifle raised, face hidden beneath a mask. I fired my revolver. The shot hit the metal railing beside him. Sparks flying. He ducked, returned fire. I threw myself behind a concrete pillar as bullets chewed through the wall. When I looked again, he was gone. Tessa lay crumpled near the window, blood pooling beneath her. I crawled to her side. Her eyes fluttered open for a moment. She tried to speak. I leaned closer. When wasn't my real name, she whispered. It was Winters, Abigail Winters. I frowned. Who's Abigail? She smiled faintly, a tear slipping down her cheek. Laurel's mother, your wife. My breath caught in my throat. That's impossible. She coughed, her body trembling. She didn't die, Harlan. They took her, made her disappear. I changed everything, name, face life, to keep you safe. But I couldn't keep her safe, too. The words hit me like lightning. Nellie alive? She grabbed my sleeve with surprising strength. Find her, before they do. Then her hand fell limp. I knelt there, the storm roaring outside, my mind spinning. For nearly 30 years, I had buried my grief beside an empty grave. And now, with the city lights flickering below, I realized everything, Braxton, Laurel, Vincent, had been pieces of something much bigger. They hadn't just stolen my daughter. They had stolen my wife. By the time I made it back to my car, the folder under my coat was soaked with rain and blood. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. I drove until the city disappeared behind me, heading into the desert where the sky opened wide and the noise fell away. At a rest stop, I pulled over and opened the folder. Inside were names, photographs, bank routes, an entire map of corruption spanning half the state. But one photo stopped me cold. It was dated just 6 months earlier. A woman standing outside a clinic in Arizona. Gray hair, tired eyes, but unmistakably her. Nellie Quince. Alive. I leaned back in the seat, the desert wind rattling the car. My reflection in the rear-view mirror looked different now. Not broken, not defeated. Determined. For years, I thought revenge was the end. But it wasn't. It was just the door. As dawn rose over the desert, my phone buzzed again. An unknown number. A text. If you want to see her again, come to Silver Creek. Bring the folder. Come alone. Chapter 8. Silver Creek. The road to Silver Creek cut through the desert like a scar. Miles of dust and silence, broken only by wind and the low hum of my truck. I hadn't slept since the night Tessa died. Or Abigail, if that's who she really was. Her words replayed in my head on a loop. She didn't die, Harlan. They took her. Nellie, alive. The thought was too big to hold, too fragile to trust. But the photo hadn't lied. She was older, weathered, but her eyes were the same, steady, kind, unbroken. If there was even a chance she was out there, I would find her. The message had given one instruction. Come alone. I drove for 5 hours before the GPS lost signal. The desert opened up, endless and gold, the horizon blurring into heat. Silver Creek wasn't a town so much as a memory. 2 gas stations, a diner, a handful of abandoned buildings, and a church missing its steeple. The air smelled of rust and sunburned earth. A sign nailed to a fence read, Silver Creek Rehabilitation Center, closed. That was where the pin on my phone had stopped. I parked beside the broken gate. The building ahead looked like it had been forgotten by time. Faded paint, shattered windows, a chain swinging in the dry wind. The world was quiet enough to hear my heartbeat. Inside, the hallways were lined with peeling wallpaper and silence. My boots echoed off cracked tiles. Dust motes danced in the sunlight, cutting through broken blinds. Then I heard it, a faint hum. Machinery. I followed the sound down a corridor, through a door marked patients only, the smell of antiseptic, and dust hit me like a memory. I passed rows of empty rooms, until I reached one where the light flickered. And there she was, sitting in a wheelchair, facing the window. Her hair was silver now, her shoulders frail beneath a shawl. But when she turned, the years fell away. Nellie, my knees nearly gave out. My God, I whispered, it's you. Her eyes widened, filling with tears. Harlan, I crossed the room in 3 strides and knelt beside her, taking her hands. They were warm, trembling. It's me. I'm here. She cupped my face with both palms, her touch so familiar it hurt. They said you were dead. They said Laurel. Her voice broke. She's gone, I said softly. But I found you. She shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. No, you don't understand. They made me disappear. Harlan. After the trial. After I told them about the company's slush fund. They said if I stayed quiet, they'd keep you safe. I didn't think they'd... She stopped, choking on the words. Who, Nellie? Who did this? Before she could answer, a door slammed somewhere down the hall. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. She gripped my wrist. It's them. You have to go. I'm not leaving you again. They'll kill you. I pulled the revolver from my coat, checking the chamber. They can try. The footsteps grew louder, echoing off the walls. Then a shadow filled the doorway. A man in a black coat, same kind as the one who'd shot Tessa. His face was hidden behind a mask. He raised his weapon. I fired first. The blast echoed through the building. The man stumbled back, hitting the wall hard. I fired again. The second shot hit his shoulder. He fell, clutching the wound. I rushed forward, kicked the gun from his hand, and ripped off his mask. It wasn't Vincent. It wasn't any man I knew. It was someone younger, mid-30s, clean-cut, with a tattoo of an eagle on his neck. Who sent you? I demanded. He coughed, blood on his lips. You're too late. She's already paid the price. I pressed the barrel to his chest. Who? He smiled through the pain. Everyone pays in the end. His hand moved fast. I thought he was reaching for another weapon, but instead, he pulled a pin from the grenade at his belt. Get down! I shouted. I grabbed Nellie and threw her to the floor as the explosion tore through the hall. The world went white. Heat fired debris. My ears screamed with silence. When I opened my eyes, the ceiling was half gone, smoke curling through the air. The man was gone, nothing left but char and ruin. Nellie was coughing beside me, alive but shaken. We have to go, I said, helping her up. We stumbled through the wreckage, the building groaning as flames licked the walls. I half carried her down the corridor, out through a broken window, into the open air. We collapsed on the ground outside, the desert wind carrying the smell of burning paint. Nellie turned to me, gripping my sleeve. Harlan, listen. The folder you found is not just money. It's names, politicians, executives. They've been funding something bigger. Laurel found it first. I blinked through the smoke. What? Project Mirador, she whispered. It was supposed to be a medical outreach program. They were testing drugs on patients without consent. Laurel discovered it through her hospital accounts. That's why they silenced her. The weight of it hit me like a hammer. All this time, I'd thought this was about money, greed, betrayal. But it was worse. So much worse. I looked toward the horizon where the sun was bleeding through the smoke. Then we finish it. We take it to the world. She shook her head weakly. You won't make it far. They'll come for both of us. Then we go down fighting. She smiled faintly, tears in her eyes. You always were too stubborn. By nightfall, we were driving east toward the border, the folder in the glove box, the desert stretching endless ahead of us. Nellie rested against the seat, eyes closed, whispering fragments of the past. Laurel's first steps, the night she left for nursing school, the promise we made to grow old together. I listened, half in pain, half in awe that she was still alive. Every mile felt borrowed. We stopped at a gas station outside Tucson. I went inside to get water. When I came back, Nellie was gone. The passenger door hung open. The wind carried a piece of paper onto the ground. I picked it up. It was a note written in her handwriting. They're following us. I can't let them take you too. You did what I couldn't. I love you. N. My throat tightened. I looked around, but the highway was empty. She'd vanished again. I opened the glove box. Empty. The folder was gone. Days later, the news broke. A whistleblower had leaked thousands of files exposing Project Mirador, a pharmaceutical human trial scandal linked to half a dozen hospitals and a senator's campaign. Anonymous sources said the leak came from a woman believed dead decades ago. Her name wasn't listed, but I knew. Nellie, she'd finished it. I watched the story unfold from a diner off Route 66, sipping bad coffee as the anchors argued over who deserved credit. They didn't know her name. They didn't need to. I folded the newspaper and looked out at the horizon, where the sun was setting over the desert, the same gold light I'd once seen in Laurel's eyes. I felt peace for the first time in years, not because justice had won, but because truth had survived. When I stepped outside, the sky was deep and endless. I walked to my truck, opened the door, and paused. On the seat sat a small envelope. No stamp, no name, just one word written on the front. Home. Inside was a photograph, me, Nellie, and Laurel in our old Ohio yard, 25 years younger, smiling under the oak tree. On the back, in Nellie's handwriting, were 3 words. We made it. I sat there for a long time, the desert wind whispering through the open door. Then I started the engine and turned toward the road that led north. Because home wasn't a place anymore. It was a promise kept. If this story found you, hold your people close. Don't let pride, distance, or time bury your love. And if someone you care about is fighting alone, be the one who shows up. Because in the end, it's not vengeance that saves us. It's the courage to care, even when it costs everything.